Well, let's take you back to an earlier story we were talking about, just to give you some context of what's been a very violent week in the education sector in schools in our country. We were talking earlier about an 18-year-old pupil stabbed to death outside Gauteng Secondary School. This is up in Brakpan. That was on Thursday. And now there's been another school incident. An unknown intruder was yesterday shot by a teacher at Kagiso Secondary School. Let's try and get more details on where we are on this. Gauteng Education Department spokesperson Steve Mabona. Steve, good morning to you. Appreciate the time as always. We'll talk about the teacher and the teacher's reaction in a moment. First of all, do we have any sense of what actually led to this incident?
Good morning, and to all our viewers. We actually are not aware of the reasons why this happened. That's why we will then rely on the police. When they conduct their investigation, probably they will then have an idea, from the statements that they will get from the school. That's why, even in our statement, we are not detailed in terms of detailing the circumstances surrounding this incident. We will want to give that opportunity to the police to do that.
I see the media statement released, Steve, talking about this person arriving at a access gate and forced his way in. Apparently the security guard at the school was unable to stop him, and then he made his way towards the principal's office. Do we know why?
Well, that's the list that we have, that he actually strategically, pushed his way, after the gate was remotely opened, and while the patrollers were still busy with the one that was coming in, and they just, went ahead straight to the admin block, and they tried to interact with him, and apparently was looking for the principal of the school. And the principal was in a meeting. He was then probably informed that the principal is still in a meeting, and that led to him wielding a knife, going for an educator who was then stabbed during that process. And the other teacher, we understand that then shot at him. That's the list that we have up to so far.
It does beg the question, Steve, why was a teacher armed on school property?
Yeah, well, those are the things that will then be assisted by the investigation. So we can't speculate. We should be in a position to understand on what led to the teacher probably being armed, and those circumstances. He should be in a position to answer, and we will get that information. Because remember, parallel to the investigation by the police, we must also, have our own investigation as the department, because we must do that. We are compelled to do so. So that investigation will go parallel with what the police will be doing. So we should be in a position probably at the later stage to update on the, our investigation and action level.
For the sake of clarity, Steve, who is allowed to carry a firearm at a school?
No, our schools are firearm-free zones. Why would people carry firearms? This is not the army or it's not a prison. So educators are there to educate. We are all, when we go there, we go to be taught as learners. That's why we will then have sporadic search and seizure. Police are allowed to go to our schools to search and confiscate any weapons, anything that might harm anyone in our environment. So that's how we manage the space.
Have we managed to establish if this individual who forced his way into the school and then stabbed another teacher, or stabbed a teacher, was it a parent of one of the pupils? Do we know anything about this individual?
Not yet. This thing happened yesterday, so we should be in a position to update at the later stage to say who is this person really? Is it a parent or someone that was from the community? But we will be in a position to update on those latest developments.
And Steve, I just want to ask one last question regarding the teacher who was stabbed. What's the condition of the teacher who was stabbed? Do we have any medical update?
Yesterday, he was taken to the nearest medical facility. We should be in a position to check with the officials on the latest developments today. We are, at the school now in Ramfisha. We are busy with our ECD program. So parallel to this, we should be in a position to also interact with the officials to check on the latest. But we are in a program now this morning where we are celebrating ECD.
It must be a muted celebration. Just in closing, Steve, is the school going to be open as normal on Monday?
Our psycho support team will be first thing in the morning at that school to support, and our wellness programs as well. The wellness program will be supporting our educators. Meanwhile, the psycho support will then be offered to the learners, and we will normally extend that to anyone that seek that assistance. So we will be monitoring that very closely on Monday.